Welcome to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. These guys are brave! They're Hawkeyes, living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes! They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled! Corn Huskers? More like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
Well, welcome back to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. Make sure to give us a like and subscribe because, Jerry and I think it'd be pretty awesome if the biggest podcast/interview show in Nebraska happened to be a Hawkeye one. So we are joined today by Iowa Hawkeye legend Quinn Early. Mr. Early, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm trying to stop laughing. Whose kid is that on the intro? Because that's awesome.
He is nor my son or Jerry's. He's a friend of the show.
Love it. I love the intro. It's awesome. I'm doing great. Doing great.
He's way too cool to be Adam Rye's kid. So
yeah. Well, no, that's true. No, he actually has been like Don the Hawkeye hype kid. It's like every single time we do our intro, everyone we interview, they're like, okay, we need to talk about this intro. Like that was awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So they have him up in Kinnick. He does like an intro at Kinnick a lot of times, and he's getting to be pretty popular. We have an interview on our YouTube channel and our podcast with him, and my kids actually did the interview, so it was like an all kids interview. It was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
So Quinn, what are you up to right now? Where are you living? What's going on in your life with work, family? Catch all the Hawkeye fans up on what's going on with you.
Oh man, where can I begin? Once I retired from football, I work for a sports nutrition company. I've worked with kids, constantly. I coached both my kids in all their sports, and then I coached at Cathedral Catholic High School. I live in San Diego, and I coached there for years and years, and it's just been great. And then in 2010, Bill Perkins, who was one of my teammates at Iowa, he had called me and said, "Hey man, come be in my movie this weekend." He did really well in business, worked on Wall Street. His passion was filmmaking. So he called me and said, "Hey, come be in my movie." So I was like, "Sure, that sounds good to me." So went to Louisiana where they were making the film. Next thing I know, I was hanging out the back of a truck shooting a machine gun, and then they paid me for it. And I was like, "Are you serious? Like I can do?" So fast forward 10 years later, so I've been a stuntman in Hollywood for the past 10 years and just been having a blast doing it. I get to double like Will Smith and double Shamar Moore on the TV show SWAT. Doubled Lawrence Fishburne on Blackish. I mean, just on and on. And it's just been a great experience. And my oldest son, Cameron, is also a stuntman. We get to work together sometimes. He's doing extremely well at it. I have two sons. Chance, my youngest son, he was actually recruited by Iowa. It didn't work out. He ended up going to Reno, Nevada. He was a really good football player. And, so now they're both up and out of the house. So now it's just me. I'm just kind of hanging and doing my thing.
I got a million questions now after that. But I'm going to let Jerry get his in here real quick.
Well, we're going to have to fight over these questions here because you're literally the first stunt man, probably our first IMDb file that we've had on the show. So, so when it came to being a stunt man, is it any kind of a training that goes with that, Quinn, or did they just throw you into the fray, or how did that work?
There are some professions that I think, it was almost for me, I know, and when I talk to a lot of people, it's totally random how they got into stunts. but it's almost like a fake it till you make it type scenario. When I first got into it, I had a couple of mentors that really helped guide me as far as the kind of etiquette on set, the do's and the don'ts. For example, if there's a stunt that they ask you to do and for a fact that you can't do it, then you say, that's something I don't feel comfortable doing. And then they go, oh, okay. And then they bring somebody else in to do it. If you say, okay, I'll do it, and then you hit the camera or you mess up the scene, that's a problem. So there are things that you do etiquette wise, but again, man, like I had to just get in there and I just did what I could do. And, and the thing about being a stunt performer is when you do the job and they yell action, you just have to get the job done. It's kind of like football, right? If they put you out on that field, you got to make that play, because if you don't, they'll get rid of you and put somebody else in, right? So stunts is the same way. You have to get in there and you have to complete whatever they call it a gag. Whatever the gag is, you have to do it and do it well. And then you start to build a reputation, and then you start to get hired more and things like that. So I'll tell you, the camaraderie in doing stunts is the closest thing to playing football. So I really enjoy it. I really do.
So if Hawkeye fans were wanting to find two or three of your most famous movies that you've appeared in, what would some of those be?
Oh man, I would say the second movie I ever did was Olympus Has Fallen with Gerard Butler.
Okay.
There's a scene where he's running down to try to save, to see what's going on at the White House, and it's an explosion and he gets thrown, and there's just a big close up of me like right there on camera, and have my gun like I'm a special agent or whatever. And then they go back to him and he's getting up, he's groggy. Then they come back to me and I'm getting punched in the face and knocked to the ground, So it was like, that was like my big thing, back when I first got started. There's also, The Nice Guys, right?
Okay.
With Ryan Gosling and God, I'm blanking right now, but from Gladiator.
Okay.
Oh, Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe, right? It's
Yes.
kind of a period. It's like in the 70s, so I'm in that one. It's funny because I'm playing a bodyguard for I don't know if you remember Buck. Remember the TV show back in the 70s, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that show. It's an old.
I remember it.
Yeah.
Adam's a young guy. He doesn't, but I remember it.
Well,
I'm not that old yet.
Yeah, Gil Gerard was the star of that show. So anyway, he's an older gentleman now, and we were bodyguarding for him. So I'm in that movie. I doubled Will on the movie Bright. You won't necessarily see me, but just know that anytime he, was getting his face kicked in, it was really me. So, things like that. So, I mean, I've been in a bunch of stuff. You could go on my IMDb page, just punch in my name and IMDb, and you can see all the stuff that I've been in.
That's awesome.
That is fantastic, Quinn. Also, I believe I actually did go into your IMDb page. Also, I believe I've seen where you're very quite studied in the martial arts. Can you expand on that?
Oh, yeah. So growing up, always been a martial arts geek. When I was a kid, my mom would drop me off at the movie theater in the morning, and I would watch the Bruce Lee Film Festival. She'd drop me off at 9 a.m. and pick me up at 5 p.m. And I'm sure she needed that break because I was a lot to handle back then. But always into martial arts. I did Taekwondo growing up as a kid. And then once I got drafted into the NFL, my first off season, I knew that I wanted to get back into martial arts. So I went down to the local Kung Fu school and I joined up. And 32 years later, I've been studying martial arts ever since. And I've been teaching it, for the past 25 years. So
I feel really bad about my life right now, how uninteresting I am as a person, because just in the first 9 minutes of this interview, you've done way cooler things than I've ever even thought about doing. So being involved in Hollywood and doing movies, tell us one actor that you met that was like way cooler, way more approachable than you ever would have thought, and maybe one actor that really was kind of aloof, that wasn't as friendly as you would think they'd be.
Well, I would say on the friendly side, I would definitely say Will Smith, right? Because he's what you think he would be. I mean, super funny, got a great sense of humor, really nice guy. Have a great time. You know, I've had the opportunity to double him on a few things. I actually, for his 50th birthday, someone dared him to bungee jump out of a helicopter into the Grand Canyon. So guess who was the test dummy for that one? You know, so I got an opportunity to do that. That was awesome. He's a great guy. I mean, as far as being aloof and all that stuff, I think, listen, actors sometimes can be a different breed. I don't want to single anybody out because that might come back to bite me.
I thought you might say that.
Maybe some egos involved, or
but you know what though, you get that in every profession, every walk of life, and all that stuff. So I don't let any of that affect me. I just keep moving and keep doing my thing. But overall, it's just been an amazing experience, and I had a great time doing it.
Jerry and I were wondering that with this this fountain of youth that you've apparently discovered, when did you discover it and where is it located? Because you look freaking fantastic for your age.
Well, what I decided a couple of years back was I decided to Benjamin Button it from here on out. So I decided to, listen, with all this re-identification, all this stuff, I've decided to identify as a 30-year-old instead of my true age, right, which is in my 50s. So, no, but seriously, though, listen, genetics, right? My mom is super young looking, and I just work out like a madman. I still train. I still eat super healthy, although I like the beers, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
IPAs and stuff, but I train, I eat super healthy. And I always tell people you spend the first 30 years of your life trying to build it up, and then you spend the rest of the time trying to hold it up. So I'm in the hold it up stage right now.
Jerry, he took one look at us. He was like, those guys like to drink beer. He just assumed. He totally knew.
No, but I'm right here. I'm right here.
Yeah. You weren't wrong.
He doesn't realize we're both 25. This podcasting stuff is hard, though, man. So
it wears on you.
So I got to ask you real quick, then, Quinn. More difficult, bungee jumping out of a helicopter or going across the middle, knowing that defensive back's bearing down on you for the catch?
Going across the middle for sure. The thing about doing stunts is people ask me that question all the time, and the thing about football is, well, it used to be anyway. I mean, the rules are different now, right? You can't blast it. Back then, you go over the middle and the ball was high, and then they just cut you in half with a chainsaw, and then throw you in the trash and you're done, But nowadays the rules are a little bit different. But the thing about football is you don't know what's coming and when. You go out there each play, you play as hard as you can, and sometimes you're taking your life into your own hands. I think with stunts, right? Sometimes unforeseen things can happen, but it's pretty planned out. There are a lot of safety measures involved. And, I know, like for me, and this, I applied this from learning from Coach Fry, and in my football game, I always played it out over and over and over again. So by the time I got to the line of scrimmage and the ball was snapped, I already made that play. And a lot of times it would happen exactly that way. And I approach stunts the same way, no matter how hard or how easy a stunt is. It could be me just tripping and falling, just something simple. But I always play it over and over and over again. So when they yell action, I've already done it, 20 times.
Sure.
So there's a lot of safety measures there. So I would definitely say football is definitely the harder deal.
Well, you mentioned Coach Fry there. In our opinion, and I think many people's opinion, one of the greatest coaches of all time, definitely way before his time. And then also you had the luxury of playing on a staff that pretty much has gone down as one of the greatest coaching staffs top to bottom in the history of college football. What were some of your takeaways from the cast of characters that were on that staff that most went on to become head coaches?
There are so many stories. I mean, I could be here all night telling you guys about the different coaches, and but I feel fortunate to have had the opportunity to play for some of these guys. Bill Snyder, I have a story about him. When I first got to Iowa, and he is a stickler for the details. He was a perfectionist and he expected nothing less than exactly what he was asking of you as his players. I remember we were watching a game film, and the game that we had just played, I'd caught a pass and I made some moves. I scored a touchdown, and we were watching the game film, and Coach Snyder says to me, "Congratulations, but how deep are you supposed to run that route?" And I said, 11 yards. He says, "How deep did you run it?" I said, 9 yards. He goes, "You can't play for me."
Wow.
Bring that route short like that. And I'm in the back of the room, and I'm under my breath, man. I'm cursing this guy, and he was so hard on me. And, my first couple of years there, and I just thought the guy hated me. And by my junior, senior year, the only thing that Coach Snyder would say to me was, "Good job, Quinn Early. Good job, Quinn Early." That's all he had to say to me. And then when I got to the NFL, it was kind of, I'm not going to say it was easy, right? Because it's a super hard league. It's a super, professional deal. But I was able to do things right off the bat. And I could play any position that they put me at. And I ran all my routes at the right depth, and I made plays. And, I attribute my longevity in that league. Obviously, there's some luck involved, but I would definitely attribute a lot of that success to Coach Snyder and his guidance. And the funny thing is that probably about my 8th year in the league, I called Coach Snyder, and I just wanted to thank him, because it was because of him, and he cut me off, and he goes, I know.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it was, so I owe him a lot. And I saw him at Coach Fry's funeral, and I gave him a big hug, and we've talked and stuff like that. So he knows how I feel. But man, you're not kidding when you talk about those coaches. You talk about the Stoops brothers. Coach Ferenz. You talk about
Barry Alvarez
and
McCarney,
and Brett Bielema, and like all of these guys, and on and on. Jay Norvell is at Nevada right now, actually, where my son Chance went and played. So yeah, you can just go on and on, man. Just a great group.
Jay's got a bright future.
What's that?
No, I said Jay Norvell has a really bright future ahead of him.
Oh no, he does, man. He's a great coach, and he, like I said, my son Chance, when he was getting recruited, and we took a visit to Oklahoma, and my son got to spend some chance with Jay, and just a really great guy, and man, he's doing a great job with that program.
One of the things that gets lost with all those coaches, I guess, to me, Quinn, though, also is how many future coaches you played alongside of at Iowa. I mean, the Chuck Longs, the Mike Stoops, Jay, Jonathan Hayes. Mm-hmm. I mean, you not only had great coaches, but you had great coaches alongside you on the team as well. And I think that gets overlooked a lot with those Hayden teams as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And just the lineage, the what Coach Fry passed down as a mentor, right, to young men, and his example. I think it says a lot. It says a lot, and I really feel fortunate to have been able to be in that program.
All right, Quinn, we're going to play a quick game with you here, okay? We're going to say the name of a member of that coaching staff, and you're going to say the first word that comes to mind, okay? when we said, okay? So just that describes them the best. It's fun to play games like this. Come on.
Okay.
All right. First one, Hayden Fry.
Mentor.
All right. See, you're good at this already.
Yeah.
Bill Snyder.
Hard ass.
You're killing it, man. Like, what? You acted like you were scared. All right. Kirk Ferentz.
You said one word or just salt of the earth, man.
Go for it. Just go for it.
Salt of the earth. Love him.
Okay. Barry Alvarez.
Just great coach. Great coach.
Bobby Stoops.
Jack Hammer. When that guy played, he must have weighed about 150 pounds, and he would knock you out and himself out, and it was unbelievable to watch him. Same thing with Mike. But
Mike Stoops as well.
Yep. Yep.
All right. And then the last one, we got Dan McCarney.
Not sure if this is true, but Playboy comes to mind. He just had that, you know what I mean? He had that smile, he had the golden locks, and he was just super cool.
Swagger.
Yeah, he had swag. Yep. Swag before swag was the thing, you know.
I told Jerry that if I was like being a diehard Hawkeye fan, coming out of high school, I really had to like put myself in those shoes and say, if he came into my living room to recruit me, I don't think I could have said no. As charismatic and as good of a speaker as he is, when we interviewed him, I've never felt so important in my life when I talked to him. He knows how to build a guy up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's just that coaching staff, man. I loved every one of those guys. Great coaching staff.
So going back to the beginning then, Quinn, as a young man in New Jersey and a team named Iowa is coming to recruit you. What are your first thoughts? Who are your key personnel you work with in recruitment? How did your recruitment go about?
So basically, I was playing football. We were playing another school, and I think the Iowa coaches, it was Bernie Wyatt. He was in charge of coaching or recruiting from the East Coast. And he was there, I think, looking at somebody from the other school we were playing. And I think I returned a kickoff for a touchdown. And there started to be a little bit of buzz about me. And I was in class one day, and you know that little black phone that hangs in the corner of the classroom? Mm-hmm. That thing rang, and the teacher answered it, and she looked right at me, and I was like, it was almost like a not again thing, right? Like, what did I do this time kind of thing, right? So she said, go up to the office. I went up there, and it was Coach Fry, Coach Wyatt, and Coach Snyder, and they were all sitting in the office. And I was like, and they let me know that they wanted me to come play football in Iowa. And then from there, I started getting some other interests. And I always wanted to go play at Penn State. You know, I was a big Joe Paterno fan growing up. And so some things happened. And, Penn State, they wanted me to go to, even though I had the grades, they wanted me to go to junior college. They wanted to give scholarships, whatever shit they were doing. And, I had some other choices. And then, so when I visited Iowa, one of the things that I loved was the fact that there were a lot of guys from the East Coast there, New York, New Jersey guys. And they all loved it. It was super cool. And then one of the big factors, and then the fact that I was an artist, and they have a great art school there at Iowa. And one of the biggest factors was the fact that growing up, I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Mm. And the Hawkeyes had those Pittsburgh Steelers uniforms. When you're 18, that's huge.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm rocking that uniform. You know what I mean? So I think it was just a cumulative thing. It was all of those things. And, sometimes you just have a feeling like this is the place that I need to be. So when they offered me the scholarship, I didn't hesitate.
And for the young guys out there, Penn State wasn't even a member of the Big Ten at that time. That they didn't come into the conference till later. I can't remember what conference they were in previous to the
Big East or something like that.
I was thinking it was, but don't
it was.
And Pitt and like those schools. But
that was a good conference back in the day. I really wish that it wouldn't have dismantled and just become a basketball conference, because they had some good football over there.
No, they did. They really did.
In 1985, you had the opportunity to play in the granddaddy of them all, the Rose Bowl. Walk us all through what that experience was like and how much that meant to you.
Well, it meant a lot. I'll tell you, that season was just full of some great moments. We had some ups and downs, going into that Michigan game, being the number one school and them number two. And, we kicked that field goal at the end, Rob Howland, and winning that game was amazing. It's funny because, I still to this day think about when we went to Ohio State, and it was like one of those torrential downpours, and we ended up losing. And there was this Sports Illustrated article, and the caption was, I have it in my scrapbook. Don't make me go in the closet and get it. But it said, "Splish Splash, Iowa takes a bath." And it's me getting like some, whatever the player was wrapped around my waist, and I'm like this, and the ball's flying out. And, we ended up losing that game. And, but we still ended up winning the conference and going to the Rose Bowl. And man, the pageantry and the experience, and, it was a pretty amazing deal. It was a pretty amazing deal, you know, and I always think about the fact that if we would have won that Ohio State game and we would have won that Rose Bowl, we would have been national champions that year.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't work out. That's, you know, right. That's the agony of defeat stuff, right? But what a great experience. What a great experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
But you're only 4 years in, really, from that 81 Rose Bowl team. And I mean, about 5 or 6 since Hayden took the realm. And so, I mean, it was an amazing turnaround for you to reach those heights. So.
No, absolutely. And I don't think I appreciated at, you know, 19 or 20, whatever I was, I don't think I appreciated the gravity of that situation. You know, we were just going out and I was just playing, you know, but now when I look back on it, man, it's just it's an amazing feeling just to know that I was a part of that.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
So who were some of the, you know, with social media, we hear about the guys like the Matt Roths, the Drew Watts, the guys that are the real characters, you know, pulling a lot of shenanigans on the team. Who are those types of guys back on that 85 team? The guys that kept it loose, the guys that were kind of ornery at heart. I mean, that gave you stories. Oh,
man. Well, you know, you had so Robert Smith, remember he went number 2. He was the first from Texas. And so him and Kerry Byrd, who played safety, the 3 of us were pretty inseparable back then. And man, the laughter was just non-stop. You know, we kind of stuck to our little group or whatever, but man, we just laughed all the time. But definitely Robert Smith, man, he always had the jokes. And you know, when I was just back in Iowa City and got to spend some time with those guys, and we were laughing like it never ended. You know, it was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
So moving on to your journey into the NFL, getting drafted by, I believe it was the San Diego Chargers. What was that experience like back when you were coming out, having to, you know, sign an agent? You don't have social media to really promote yourself back then like you do now. What was that process like, going through the draft, getting an agent, and transitioning into the National Football League?
You know, it was pretty amazing experience. You know, going into my junior year, I had the thought that, you know, if I have a great year this year, that, you know, I'd like to come out and enter the draft. And a week before the first game, we were scrimmaging. I got tackled. Somebody fell on me. I separated my shoulder. I missed the first half of the season. So it didn't work out that way. But it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me because I came back in my senior year. And, you know, as you guys know, I had a really good year that year. So I knew that I was going to get drafted pretty high. You know, it was funny because all of a sudden I started getting these calls from like these different agents and all this other stuff. And I think I had a pretty good support system in knowing not to sign with an agent or really talk to any agents or do anything like that. But the nice thing is that I had a family friend who was friends with an agent from my hometown. And we had talked on occasion, just casually, and he never offered me anything. He never promised me anything, never offered to buy my mom a house or any of these other things. And I ended up going with him. And that ended up being a really good deal, you know, once my senior year was over. And then just doing, you know, going to the combines and going, you know, to the, you know, so basically like it is now. Went to the combine, you know, some of the coaches, some of the teams came to the facility, worked out for them. And I knew that I was going to go pretty high. And then on draft day, you know, I was just at my home, you know, my mom's home. And, you know, it was a little nerve wracking because the first round went by and I didn't get called. And then the second round went by and I didn't get called. And by then now I went in there and got into bed and just went to bed.
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't take it. And then finally the San Diego Chargers called and let me know that they were drafting me and wanted me to be a part of their program. And it was the most phenomenal experience, you know, that I've ever had. You know, I just it's just been a childhood dream of mine. And to finally be able to put that NFL uniform on was a pretty amazing thing.
Well, and in the small world that is Hawkeye football, you were drafted by a team that had a general manager by the name of Bobby Beathard, who ends up being grandfather to C.J. Beathard. eventual Iowa quarterback. But I don't believe he would have even been born yet when you were there. So
no, and I'll tell you, Bobby Beathard wasn't really a Quinn early fan. To be truthful,
really,
yeah. So that was just a program that was in turmoil when I got there. The Air Coryell days were just ending. Ken Fouts just retired. Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow, on and on and on. And we weren't very good. And, Steve Ortmeyer was the general manager, and Al Saunders was the head coach. And there was just a lot of infighting between all those people. And, I was only with them for 1 year. And then this my second year, Bobby Beathard came in. And I think he liked those receivers, from Winston-Salem State. He liked those diamonds in the rough type guys. I think there's a stigma, that, I don't know, Big Ten receivers can't play the game or something, or especially Iowa. Sure. I mean, how many Iowa receivers have played in the NFL? So I think he came in just with a conceived, Quinn Early's not very good, whatever it was. So my second year, I ended up getting hurt, and then my third year, I was just on the top of his get rid of list. And but I had a really good training camp, so they kept me, but they kept putting guys in front of me, and I wasn't really playing. And then back then they had that Plan B free agency, which meant that at the end of the season, every team had to allocate 15 players onto this list, so other teams could possibly pick them up. And then if the team didn't pick them up, then the team could keep the player or they could just release them. And he let me know that if another team didn't pick me up, that they weren't going to keep me. That was a really hard time. I had just gotten married. I had a brand new baby. Sure. I was 24 years old. I'm like a young guy. And so once the free agency came around, I got calls from like 26 teams. And I was like, wow. And I ended up signing with the Saints. And it was a good thing because what it did was it kept a chip on my shoulder. And it made me work hard just to prove that I belonged there. And, it's funny because years later I ran into Bobby Beathard and he apologized to me.
Really?
Yeah. He told me I was getting on an elevator, the door opened, he was coming out, and he said, I was wrong about you. I made a mistake. And I just said, thank you for saying that. So that was pretty awesome.
Cool.
That takes a classy guy to do that. I mean, we're all wrong.
And it's business. It's business. I've never held it, I've never taken it personal. I know that it's business. Guys like their guys, they want to bring some other guys in. It's business, it's economics, all that stuff. I get it, but and it really helped to mold me and inform who I was as a professional, because when you're at Iowa, it's all love. Even when we would lose, it would be like, oh, we still love you guys. Good. If you lose in the NFL, man, they're ready to you up out back, it's a different deal. And I had to learn that. And, and I did. And it worked out great.
I really want to get your perspective from someone that had played for the Chargers and that lives in San Diego now, what that was like for the community, the fans, and maybe even for yourself when the Chargers, I know it's not super far away, but moved up to Los Angeles, how that affected the community.
Well, I think that, what was really apparent to me when I got drafted by the Chargers, I remember playing the 49ers, and we were at Qualcomm Stadium. It used to be Jack Murphy Stadium. And there were probably 40,000 fans in the stadium. So the stadium wasn't full. And I would say 30,000 of those fans were wearing red and gold.
Wow.
And when they announced the Chargers, we were getting booed at our home stadium.
Wow.
And the thing about living in San Diego is one of the only places where you can go to the beach in the morning and then go skiing in the afternoon. It's always 70, 80 degrees. Everybody's playing golf. There's always something to do. I don't think it was the mecca of football as far as, the fans go and things like that. Are they missed here in San Diego? Absolutely. And you have the diehard fans, and it's weird living in the city and there's no football team, but it's not so huge that you just know, you can just feel it when football season comes around. Right. I mean, it's really not that big a deal, So it's I don't know.
There's too much to do there.
Too much to do.
I've been there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, as far as places to play pro ball, though, you hit a lot of places with fun things to do between New York, New Orleans, San Diego. I'm not sure how Buffalo ended up on that list, but that's our 3 out of 4 isn't bad.
I loved playing in Buffalo. I really loved playing in New Orleans. Obviously, I had my best years there, but it was great because my children were little. We had great restaurants. We had some great seasons there. I just had a blast there. Hated to leave, but again, the business, right? And then when I signed with Buffalo, I really enjoyed it there as well. It was at the end of the Jim Kelly era, and Andre Reed and Thurman Thomas and Bruce Smith, those guys. But it was great because it was in New Orleans when I was playing for Jim Mora. He was kind of a slave driver. Like he expected. I mean, it was very serious, and we had some good teams. When I went to Buffalo, Marv Levy let the players pretty much held each other accountable. Let's just say. So if you couldn't make plays, if you didn't, like Thurman and those guys, man, they let you know you suck. I don't even know why they signed you. It was no joke, but we had a great time, and I liked the fact that when I got there, those guys were older as well, and our families were all friends. The kids were little. We got to spend a lot of family time together. And what I loved about Buffalo was on Saturdays before the games, we'd have our walkthrough practice, and the whole family would be there. The kids would be running around on the field, and it was just a really family atmosphere. So I really, really enjoyed that. Now I'll tell you, my last year when I played for the Jets, that was my 12th year. I had no business on a football field at that point. I was just, the fire was out. I was, ready to just drink a couple of beers and just hang out. And, Bill Parcells called me. He's like, hey, man, we need you. We need one. And, I looked at my wife and she was like, you better get your ass on that plane, and so I did. And the thing about it was they were picked to go. This is 1999, and the Jets were picked in the AFC to go to the Super Bowl that year. And I knew that if I didn't go and went, I would regret it. And then Vinny Testaverde, who was the quarterback, he ended up getting hurt. I think it was like the first game or something like that. And then we struggled. But, every experience that I had, I'm thankful for now when I look back on it, and being able to play as long as I did, I'm really appreciative of it.
Okay, so Adam and I are going to be fighting with each other to ask you this next question because we are the Nebraska Hawks Nest. And when I was doing some research earlier today about your time with the Jets, there was a young defensive back on the Jets by the name of Scott Frost, who now coaches the Huskers. Please tell us that you got maybe a good shot in on him blocking, or was there any good Scott Frost story that came out of your time when you guys were on the same team? Or?
No, because what happened was training camp. I thought I was done. So after my last season with the Bills, they had released me. And, I thought I was done. I was still training, but I wasn't quite as intense. And, I was kind of hanging out, and training camp was almost over. And then I got the call from Bill Parcells. So they were just ready to break camp. So there was really no banging heads within the team for me that season. When I got there, they were breaking camp, and it was like the season was starting. Scott was a part of the team. And it's pretty awesome to watch what he's doing with that program and, his coaching career and things like that.
Sure. So speaking of, characters like Scott Frost, who are some of the most memorable guys that you remember playing with or against that you look back, just on a regular Monday or Tuesday, and you're like, man, that guy was an animal, or that guy was out of control. Anybody pop to mind when you think about that?
Yeah. So as far as guys that I played against, and I always tell people this, people ask me sometimes who, some of the best defensive backs that you ever played against. I have two. So first is Eric Allen. Remember, he used to play with the Eagles. And Eric is he's a smaller, unassuming guy. You would never know that he was as much of a beast as he was. And, I used to have to really, really study him. And we talk about it some. He lives here in San Diego. He's from San Diego. And we've had some conversations because we had some battles when we played, and he was absolutely one of the best players I ever played against. And what's pretty cool is I've got to coach a couple of his kids in football. You know, I coach at Cathedral Catholic here in San Diego, and got to coach a couple of his kids, so that's been pretty cool. Another guy was James Hasty, who used to play for the Chiefs.
Okay.
And he would play bump and run, and, you know, I'd go to make my move at the line, and he had these clamps. He would just clamp his hands around your shoulders, and it was like he would just, you know, he just make you look bad. I mean, he was just a really solid player, really hard to play against. So those are those couple of guys. And you know, when you talk about characters, though, so Eric Moulds, who they drafted around for the Bills, he was a really good player, Pro Bowl guy for the Bills. And man, you want to talk about the jokes? That guy, man, we just laughed. I mean, it was nonstop from the time you walked into the locker room to the time you came off the field and went home for the day. Driving home, I'm still laughing about what he said earlier in the day. So just some great times, though, all great experiences.
Well, anyway, you know, and I what sticks out to me, though, what we've talked about this, you know, we're coaching just all of your life. I mean, you've mentioned the Jim Moras, the Marv Levy's, you know, we've talked about all the coaches at Iowa, the guys you played along with. I mean, you've had a string of basically Hall of Fame coaches from start to finish through your time. Was 99 the last year that Parcells was there then? Was that the end they were going to hand reins?
Yeah, I believe so. And then they wanted Bill Belichick to be the coach, and then they hired him, and then he quit, and then he went to the Patriots. And I'll tell you, he was the defensive coordinator at the Jets my last year. And I remember we were getting ready to play the Bills, and he called me into his office, and, you know, he's very serious. And I almost felt like it was a murder investigation, and I was the main suspect, and they had the light was shining on me, and he was just asking me all these questions about the Bills and their schemes and how they do, and just such a detailed guy. But you're right. To have the opportunity to play for the coaches that I've played for, it's a pretty amazing thing.
So Jerry and our research team dug up something that I was unaware of about you. Back in 2013, you were a part of a mentoring program that assisted with Jamarcus Russell. Is that accurate information?
Yeah, it is. Not so in depth. There was a group that was trying to help him get back into the NFL.
Okay.
And they had me come and work with some of the receivers that were working with him during that time. So I went down, it was Jeff Garcia. Jeff Garcia lives here in San Diego as well. And so, we went down and worked with those guys. And, I just tried to give him some good words of encouragement, and just, there's certain things that you need to do as a professional if you want to remain a professional. And, sometimes I think some of these young men, again, if you don't have a good support system, and you get a little money in your pocket, I think you lose focus on what's important, what got you there and what's going to keep you there. So I think that we were trying to, collectively just really trying to stress that to him, and because he definitely had the talent. He had the size, he had the talent, he had the strength, he had the speed. He had the arm. So for whatever reason, that didn't work out. But I didn't get too in depth with it. But I was there when they were trying to, help him get back into the league.
So, now that Adam and I are reassessing all of our life choices after hearing about all your adventures, what have you got going now? What's Quinn Early? What's the current? What's Quinn Early's goals down the road? I mean, and just make us feel worse about our choices. So.
Yes, do.
So, in doing acting and stunt work, again, we were joking before about the Found a Youth thing, but getting thrown through a plate glass window wasn't quite feeling as fresh as it was back in the day, right? So. I've done a lot of writing, and how I got into writing was my mom wrote this amazing story about our family history. And it got me, I actually wrote a screenplay based on her book, and that really sparked me into writing and producing and things like that. So I'm doing a lot of that right now. And most recently, I was in Iowa City. I told you guys before we did the show. And there's a gentleman named Frank Kinney Holbrook. Frank Kinney Holbrook was the first black football player from the state of Iowa to play major collegiate sports. He was a two-sport athlete. He played football and ran track. He was from Tipton, Iowa. His father was a slave, ran away from his captors when he was 12 years old, ran into this guy, Captain Lloyd Dillon, who was in the Union Army. James Holbrook, Kinney's father, valeted for Captain Dillon through the Civil War. After the war, he brought the young man back to his hometown of Iowa City. When James Holbrook grew up, he moved to Tipton and got married, had a family. Frank Kinney Holbrook was a football and track star at Tipton High School. Iowa wanted him to come. They couldn't afford to send him. The town rallied around him, raised money to send him to Iowa. In 1895, they didn't have a coach. They were just kind of like a bunch of ragamuffins running around. He played end. Back then, they didn't throw the ball, so he was blocking. In 1896, Alfred E. Bull was this All-American football player. He came to coach there at Iowa, moved Kinney to running back, halfback, crushed it. They won their first conference championship in Iowa football history in 1896. They beat the Missouri Tigers. Nobody knows about the guy. There have been a couple of articles, in recent, last year, 2 years about him. But I just completed a documentary about him. It's being edited right now. It's called The Shoulders of Giants. And there's a website. If you go to frankkinneyholbrook.com, you can read about it. I'll keep updating you guys. The trailer will be done soon. And my hope is to get it signed with some sort of streaming service or something like that. I also want to raise money for, my foundation. My mom unfortunately passed away from Alzheimer's, and I started a foundation in her name. It's the Ann Early Intervention Foundation. And, I'm also going to use this documentary as a vehicle to raise money for Alzheimer's. And then I'm going to continue I'm going to do a documentary series called This Is One. And it'll just highlight Black pioneers in American sports history whose stories haven't been told. I'm going to tell their stories.
Very, very cool. Make sure you throw in Duke Slater too, because he's got an amazing story too that not enough Hawkeye fans know enough about Duke Slater.
It's amazing because I lived in Slater Hall. I didn't know. Yeah. Sure. And so I do. I know a lot about Duke Slater and his history, and he's actually there's mention of him in this documentary. But there's so many stories, and it's not just Hawkeye stories, but it's just, and throughout the Big Ten. And, one of the ones I'm going to be working on next is just the relationship between Hayden Fry and Jerry Levice. Mm-hmm. When he was at SMU, he gave the first scholarship to a Black player back in 1966. Mm-hmm. There was death threats and everything else, and when I went to Coach Fry's funeral, Jerry Levice spoke, and they had a slideshow. He was part of their family. And, just the relationship that they had and how many lives Coach Fry touched. Do you know that he's in the Marine Corps Hall of Fame? He's in the college football. I mean, it's just, the story is just, it's ridiculous. And when I was just back in Iowa City and I was talking to Robert Smith, and Robert Smith had asked Coach Fry why he gave, and that's a big reason why Robert went to Iowa. And he asked Coach Fry why he gave Jerry Levice that scholarship way back when. And he said he was, and Robert could say this a lot more eloquently than I'm saying it, but he said that Coach Fry said to him that he was tired of being in the dark, and that, hate and racism, right, can't live in the light. And I just thought that was just really powerful, really powerful. So I definitely want to do that story. And there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, I love that you said that, and just to think, how good would it be if somebody did a movie about Hayden Fry's life, just with his swagger and his style and his innovative thinking, and just way before his time in so many different ways. Just how interesting that would be, and that being a part of the Hayden Fry story, like everything he did at SMU. I mean, the guy lived one full life.
Yeah, and North Texas. I mean, he got it done, and I would love to be a part of making a film about him.
If only we knew somebody who was getting their, chops that, stuntman, producer, executive director, maybe that even played for him and could even maybe stars himself in the movie. It's I don't know. If we knew who that guy could be.
A little long in the tooth to be starring in stuff in the 80s.
You keep drinking from the fountain of youth, anything's possible.
So Quinn, what is the release date, or do you have one yet on that documentary?
Don't have a release date yet, but I would say that the trailer. I have a real basic trailer that I did myself on the Frank Kinney Holbrook website, but the actual trailer, the professional trailer, should be done in the next week or two, and I would say that the documentary will be ready within the month, and then I'm just going to start pushing it forward, and start doing some social media on it and all that stuff. So just be looking for it within the next month or two.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Awesome. And make sure to keep us posted on all this stuff. We'd love to help you share it out.
Absolutely.
All right. My last burning question I've got for Quinn Early. You got one more season of college football eligibility to come back as a receiver, but you can only choose one quarterback. Chuck Long, Mark Vlasic, Chuck Hartlieb. Who's Quinn Early choosing as his quarterback?
So Mark Vlasic, Chuck Hartlieb, those are the only two?
And Chuck Long. So
let me tell you first, and Chuck knows this because I tease him all the time about it. Back when I was a redshirt freshman and Chuck was a senior, before every game, Chuck would say to me, "Today's your day, Q. Today's your day, Q." And then during the game, he would never throw me the ball. Right. So as awesome as he was, get him out. And unfortunately, my junior year, I only got to play half a season because remember I told you I got hurt.
Yeah,
that's right.
So I only got to play half a season with Mark. But man, what a phenomenal quarterback! And me and him are awesome friends to this day. And Chuck Hartlieb, I mean, because of that guy, I had the season I had my senior year and went to the NFL.
Sure.
So it's hard to choose. It's hard to choose. So I'm just gonna leave it there.
Right.
But
all right, it's a tie for first. We'll leave it at that for you. and we can't forgive Chuck Long, according to what you're telling us.
I love Chuck to death, man. He's a guy, man. But yeah, we joke about that.
All right, Quinn. Well, we better let you get going. Jerry and I have a lot of pondering and evaluating to do on our life choices right now. And, luckily enough, we're not so far, one foot in the grave that we can actually maybe make some changes at this point.
Wait, man, this podcast is awesome, man. You guys are doing great. So I appreciate it.
If you have a premiere, maybe you can invite us to that. We can at least feel like we've done something here in our, in our recent history. So
absolutely. Yeah, let's stay in touch for sure.
All right.
Sounds good.
Quinn, thank you so much for everything you did as a Hawkeye and just had such an awesome pro career and tearing it up in Hollywood. It's just one thing after the next. So let's keep it going. We're going to be looking forward to what we see from you next.
I appreciate it, man. Good talking to you guys.
All right, Quinn.
All right,
go Hawks.
All right, go Hawks.